We were in Chattanooga. We were doing a big rally there, and some way or another, the Lord caught me up, and he said, now I want you to prophesy to this nation from Chattanooga. I have no idea why Chattanooga, but I guess if I researched enough, I would find out from the Lord. But he said to me, he said, I want you to see how this nation is going into its worst swamp season. It's going to look like a civil war up until January the 18th, 2021. Now, I think that sort of culminated yesterday in some areas. I think when we look back at all we've gone through the last couple of years, we see that. Now, I grew up in East Texas, Louisiana area. I understand swamps. So that's the reason the Lord could communicate to me with that lingo, because I've had to walk through swamps. Now, to walk through a swamp means you're going to have to find your way very carefully. There's lots of dangerous creatures. And if you make a wrong move, if you don't feel in front of you, you can go into a sinkhole and immediately and not come out. And so I began to understand that was where our nation was headed. As a nation, we were headed into a very dangerous season with lots of sinkholes. That by January the 18th, it would be decided in America which direction she wanted to go. And I believe America has made a choice based upon lots of legality and lots of decisions by powerful people on the way that she wants to go. I think she's coming out of a swamp. I just don't think it's the promised land we wanted. Well, first of all, I believe that I wrote a great book called The Passover Prophecies, because I think this whole era we're in, Sid, for 10 years is a Passover era. I don't think it was last 2020's historical Passover, which had never happened before since the original Passover. God didn't just shut in Israel, he shut in the whole world. And I think what he did was he put us all together on a playing field to create one new man. In other words, it wasn't just the Jews this time, it was the Christians as well. And he says, I'm getting you all in the same place so I can advance you to Passover. That's what I think we start into this year. We start moving forward over the next 8 years, so to speak, becoming one new man. But now nationally, that is going to create lots of upheaval. I believe when God put President Trump in office, he put him there to realign us with Israel. And he did that. That's the ultimate thing with God. I mean, it's right there in Zechariah. It's right there in the Word of God. It's right there all the way through. If we do not align as a nation with Israel, we begin to fade toward being a nation that is realigned with an antichrist structure. And what God showed me, and I wrote 3 books about it in 1986, was a 10-year increment of where America would make choices. In that 10-year increment, the church would be making choices. Would we align with Israel? Would we become one new man? And as the church was doing that, would we allow the Spirit of God to move? As the church was doing that, nations were choosing their direction. And the danger is by 2026 now in America is we look like China.
Oh, that does not sound good.
And that's the real danger of the progression, where I feel like when President Trump was in office, he was turning us toward Israel. He was turning us away from China, because China was already infiltrated every state we had and was beginning to control every port we had. I share a dream in this Passover prophecies that I had about the port structure and how we couldn't get our ship in place because China's barge had gotten in our place. We had to use reverse mirroring to get into place. Now, I think that's where we are right now. We are in a precarious moment of us deciding covenantally, biblically, are we going to follow and ask the blessings of God's covenant to have liberty in this land, or will we pull away from God's covenant as a nation and God's people become stronger and stronger now to rise up and reflect his covenant power?
Is God showing you what's going to happen?
I really think he's shown me that we triumph, that God's people triumph, that that there is such a move of God coming that it shakes this nation. I don't think this nation has had its last shot at making a decision, and I don't want to. I think that's why so many prophets are encouraged to keep trying to prophesy this nation into its future. I don't think this nation has had its last shot. I think its last shot comes when there's a sweeping move of the Spirit that sweeps across this land. Then people start making decisions. And if they reject that move of the Spirit, I don't think that we will ever recover fully as the covenant nation that God intended us to be.